Pádraig Cúndún, Utica's 19th century Irish poet. Pádraig was born in Ballymacoda, County Cork. It's a very, very small village, 1777. His family were tenant farmers, and Pádraig did not learn how. Pádraig did not attend schools, but he could. Obviously, he spoke Irish, and he spoke it quite well. But he learned how to read and write in the Irish language, and he remained that way for the rest of his life. He never learned the English language even after moving here to America. And he had a talent. He developed a talent for writing poetry, and he said a lot of poems to music. And you'll hear an example of this right here. It's a poem called Torah Anvalia. It means the wake of the barrel, and it's a drinking song.
Oh no!
Pádraig was a party boy, apparently, and it did get him in trouble a few times. But he's not really noted. Yes, he is noted for that. He's noted for a lot of things. This Torah Anvalia, it was written in 1819, and we'll play it for you.
Skålen kastas klöjter Ballymacoda passion vunta. Joen länder för kjolver kallas kroga kammala goda. Skålen kaktas kaklokan labra, olga flauen flursha. I spåren fantastiska jobba, ätra här åren varmande yoga. Stormy härskit och yoga jaffa. Orno arni kuidi Akdoris värsta skårla Kajskas gojsta skapera nura Antarola daga kan fjolling Ägate jokon kassikan kuntas I stolga nästa gubborna Magna rurban varmala juga Ene jaman jona Karin it stålen Sola. It's Lord and I can soar and up and on you and button on shoula. It's soar and yana for loka castle of Fossi valley me blue and I'll show and shallet the course of time and the girl and barren the yuga. The land and the Fräulein and Horscher lagen duna. Is going shut in the Horscher sex in their board being acted the school. Is going out of her foyer, Capital, Torma, Parna, and Lundon. Are going like out of the sport and toughen their war on Barman and Yuga. Lågren lasso and foil Ballymacoda cover kuiga. Flows the band of the rose, the rubber and the soul from man and the moon. A horny like in the glow, like on the below, the sight that is soon bird. Sing for him, gather like Cora, that dagger and roll on Barman the Yuga.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Now, what version, I know you talked about this, what version did you hear? This one?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a little research on it, but I couldn't get it to go, so I didn't get to hear it. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Because there is a version out there on YouTube by a singer called Sean O'Shea. He's a current singer. And he never gave credit to Pádraig Cúndún for the words here. But anyways, it's very different from this. It's a little bit more upbeat. But he's hard to understand. This one, and of course it's going to be hard to understand because it's all in Irish. But this one is a lot clearer. So I don't know if this exists out on YouTube yet or not. I know where I got it from.
Mike, you were watching it, you know what to do. Do you know how to speak like that? Do you know how to speak Irish?
I can speak a little bit, not enough to speak what is going on.
Understand what you're reading.
understand.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I can understand some of the words, and you'll see, these are none of this are my translations. So I take no credit for any of the translations here.
Okay, you're gonna get your translation.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
this is the first verse of this song, and just a little background of where this text came from. This is not written in Pádraig Cúndún's handwriting. It was written based on the letters that he sent while he was in Ireland, because this was in 1819, and he didn't emigrate to America until 1825. So he was still in Ireland. And some of his writings existed in Ireland. But once he started sending letters back and forth after he came to America, a scholar in Dublin found them and compiled them, and this is 1932, that these didn't get compiled, and they were typeset in the script you're seeing right here. And this is old, I wouldn't say it's old Irish, but you can see there are certain marks in here, accent marks and stuff, and you'll see what it looks like when they take some of the accent marks out and put other letters into it. So it was hard to typeset something like this on a modern press. So this turned into what you see the first paragraph.
It's interesting.
I'm pointing at the screen here like I'm pointing at something. You can see dots over the letter C, over the letter B. Those are called shamus. They're aspiration marks. It teaches you how to speak it helps you speak the language more clearly. So they, in order to typeset it better, they replace that dot over that letter with the letter H, or as they say in Ireland, H. And what that does, when you see that, this is the word for town, Balya, but when it's preceded by a certain other word, they put that shamu in there, and it becomes Valya. So this is I'm not trying to give you a course in Irish language, but that's why you see certain things going on here. And of course, this is the translation for this verse. So, I will send forth a testament to the multitudes of beautiful, well-mannered Ballymacoda, fierce, vigorous, commanding, valiant, brave, powerful lions, mighty men who are in the habit every day, without weakening, of drinking generously and liberally. It's a great joy to be them amongst at the wake of the barrel being drained. So, you know, you gotta love a guy who just sticks around and drains that barrel, right? But he had, you know, this is one of the most well-known of his writings right here. So Pádraig Cúndún, or Pádraig Cúndún, as I said, he was from Ballymacoda, Ireland. It's a county Cork. You can see that on the map here. How many folks have been to Ireland before? Okay, so I don't know if anybody's ever been to Cork, but he was from County Cork. Mine?
No. No.
It just reminds me I'll turn mine off anyways.
That's a good idea.
So he was from County Cork, and he lived near the Uaman River, which you'll see here. You'll see that outlined district with the yellow arrow pointing to it. That was the area. That was the area called Shannacle.
Does that tell you what parish he was born in?
Yes, it does. That's parish Shannacle.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you. 'Cause I heard that if you don't know what parish you're from, it's harder to figure out your lineage. Is that true?
Probably. But Jerry might be able to attest to that a little bit. But
Well, a lot of the Irish public records were destroyed in the revolution.
Yeah.
And during other conflicts, so a lot of what records are left are parish records and church records.
There's a both.
So that helps you find something if you know what parish the church was in.
That's
Then you can,
the
you
mystery.
might be a little more successful. It's very difficult tracing in Ireland because of the lack of public records.
And you can see in this picture, this is the Atlantic Ocean, or the southeast coast of Ireland. And here's the Uaman River, and his property was in here someplace. Wasn't necessarily right in Ballymacoda, but Ballymacoda was the nearest big town, and that's where he went to the pub, I guess. But you can see, this is basically a tidal river for quite a ways here, and tidal rivers, well, they flood. That it's low to the ground. So he was a farmer, and he didn't make out too well farming on that property. Now, this is obviously a picture taken more recently, but it's in that same area of Ballymacoda, or near Yole, along the Uaman River, and you can see how that area floods. So this was the problem that Patrick faced as a tenant farmer. You can see a fence line even that's inundated with water. Not good farmland. But the mad sea's fury, Christ grace be it, laid waste my harvest and swept it down. This was some lines that he wrote to the parish priest on missing his annual tithing contribution to the church. And he was quite the religious man, but he could not make his payments. And this is an example of what happened to tenant farmers, and this did not happen to Patrick. If you pardon me for a minute, I have a few lines that I need to read on this, so I have to get out of this for a second. Pick up where we let off. Tenant farmers, if they did not pay their rents, were evicted, because the landlords they had worked at the mercy of their English overlords. So Patrick wrote back in 1934 to one of his friends, or 1834, to one of his friends in the area. What was I to do? I saw strong, powerful men in tatters working as day laborers for the owners, often without even enough potatoes for themselves. I've said to myself that I would die before I would put up with that. And so I resolved to come over here. People hardier than I are here, I hear, were put under grips since I left Ireland, and have since had to come to America, just as I did. So he basically came to America to escape what you see here in this picture. And this is before the famine. This is pre-famine.
Before the potato famine.
So it was stuff, you know, this type of nonsense was going on. These pictures were taken during the famine era, but it illustrates what they did to the tenant farmers in that time period. And then he writes again, and this is a poem that was a little bit more clear in translation. Esteemed and noble man, tell me thy tale. This is a woman talking to Patrick. As he writes, esteemed and noble man, tell me thy tale, and say what caused departure from thy land. I mourn thy desolation in a lonely realm, thy good wife and thy weak young bairns. Bairns are children. And he answers, flower of fair-haired maids, I will tell thee, the substance of my tale correctly and truly. The death of my kinsmen, generous and hospitable, who extended the hospitality of their house to hosts, deceit and the crooked trick of a treacherous neighbor, torment and encroachment from English boors, evil English boors, who fasten their yoke on the pure fold of the Gaels, beyond reclaim in Erin, the land of my sires. That's pretty powerful stuff. Let's get back to the... So in 1825, Patrick and his young family of 4 or 5 children, I think they were his son Pierce Condon, daughter Catherine, daughter Eileen, and daughter Margaret emigrated. They traveled to Cove, which is near Cork City. Cove was a major place of embarkation onto ships headed for North America as well as England, and emigrated in 1825. And here, the red arrow is pointing to Cove. And you can see the harbor. The harbor there, a very safe harbor for ships to leave Ireland. And that's where they sailed out of in 1825. We don't know what ship he sailed on. There are, I think we have researched a few records and could not find any of the what's the word I'm looking for? The ship's manifests that mention him. I'm hoping that we can accomplish that through our friend in Ireland, the professor that we've been working with on this project. But anyways, he boarded one of these ships, and you may have heard the term coffin ships. That's what these were. They were coffin ships. So they would crowd people into these ships, just like stacking cordwood, I guess. And it's a 6 to 8 week travel time. And can you imagine, like during a pandemic type situation, how many people would have died from this journey? This is what they faced. But Patrick and his family survived that trip, and they ended up in Quebec. So they ended up in Quebec, and we don't know their exact journey, but it's likely that they either traveled by boat up the St. Lawrence River or along that riverbed and headed down to the Utica area. Why did they come to Utica? Well, they already had cousins over here that they had written from his father's side. So there were Condons already over here settled in Deerfield, New York. And when we were working on this project, we were looking for Condons. And boy, did we find a lot of them, but a lot of them had the same names. But you know, so with the help of Jerry Reed back here, we just heard from here a second ago. You know, we managed to get that all sorted out, and also with the help of Professor Tony O'Flynn from Ireland, who we've been working with a lot on this project. Actually, Tony O'Flynn did his PhD thesis on this guy. So it's kind of cool. So we figured, you know, the most logical route back then, you know, up along, you know, upriver on the St. Lawrence or along the shoreline, and then down through the Black River Valley to land into the Deerfield Hills. This is where we believe his farm was located. We've traced it and you know, using the deeds, found the deeds, you know, the deeds and abstracts for some of this. And this is at the corner of Walker Road and Route 8. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that area.
Yep.
Oh, that's where Patrick's farm was. Obviously, you know, it's way different now than it was back then with the paved road and everything. But you can only imagine, because he lived there, but he also worked on the Erie Canal. And he had to, you know, he had to take, you know, he didn't have a car. You know, this is 1825 after all. They hadn't been around yet, so he, you know, he would have to come to Utica to work on the canal by horseback or by foot. And he wrote, when he wrote back to his friends in Ireland, and of course, if you're familiar with Deerfield and getting up and down that hill at all, you know it's a hike, you know. So he wrote back to his friends and neighbors. There are no smooth plains, only woods and trees and great rough places. Mountains, valleys, and misty regions, wild animals growling defiance, and poisonous snakes slithering in venom. A little bit over the top, but you know what, with the venom thing. But you know, when we were researching this, we were going to drive up and see where his property was. And he said, well, you know, we could take Route 8 and 12 up there. I said, no, let's take Walker Road and get a real feel for how he had traveled back then using horse and buggy or just on horseback. And it gave you an appreciation. I mean, it's literally up and down all over the place.
Yes.
So, you know, it was not an easy journey. And it was, as you saw in the pictures of Ballymacoda, Ireland, it was way different from what he was used to. As I said, he got a job on the Erie Canal, and we're hoping to work with the Canal Society. They're bigger, they're kind of busy right now with the 200th anniversary of the Erie Canal coming up next year. But we're hoping to see if we can find some records of his employment on the Erie Canal to kind of, you know, cement that and put that all in perspective. And we believe he worked on the locks, maintaining the locks. And this is an example of what one of the locks would have looked like back then. Okay, as I said, he's up there on the hill. He was a religious man. And one of the other reasons he chose Utica, the Utica area, was that there would be a place he could go to Mass nearby. Remember, back then, this was a western wilderness in 1825. You know, you went further west, it was all nothing, and the Erie Canal opened everything up. But it was still considered the frontier. So there weren't that many churches around, so where he ended up going, we believe, would be the original historic old St. John's here in Utica. This is a picture of that. That was that was here already. In about 1835 or so, Jerry, was the
Pretty close, yeah.
pretty close. The Holy Cross Church was built up closer to where he lived. And that church went out of business probably 30 or 40 years later. It wasn't,
1868.
yeah, so it was gone. But that was within, you know, even a decent walk to go to that church.
If he didn't speak English, did they speak Irish? These churches?
That's a very good question, and the answer I would say is probably not.
Okay.
Although, and back then, many of the masses were probably in Latin.
Okay, all right.
And there's no records that say that he knew any Latin. But of course, you know, masses are fairly standard. And you know, the prayers are fairly standard. Lord's Prayer, you know, the Apostles' Creed, things like that. All fairly standard. He could understand, we believe he could understand, you know, certain phrases in different languages such as English and or Latin during the Mass. That's a really good question, but they did have priests, Irish priests there at this Church of the Holy Cross, because it was a big German and Irish population in the Deerfield area. And then his daughter, well, some of his children ended up moving out of the woods and down to the big city of Utica and Marcy and Deerfield, and some of them ended up going to church at St. Peter's at Deerfield Corners, and that's where his daughter Elizabeth had gone to church, and we're not sure where Christina had gone to church yet. Still looking into some things. And here's another map of the area, a little bit closer. This is the Griffin map, or Griffith, something like that.
Yeah.
And it shows you kind of a close-up view of where. Again, I gotta go in front of this. You know, his farm was over here. No, it was over here. And the church, Holy Cross Church, was up here. And the red circles are schools where his children may have gone to school. And that's one other project that we got to try to work on, is getting a hold of the, I think it's under the White Sparrow School District right now, but getting a hold of those school records that go back that far, if at all, to see where his children went to school. Because between the time when he left Ireland, remember he had 4 kids, but he had 7 more.
Wow.
He had 7 more.
Kill time.
Well, until his wife died of exhaustion, I would guess. But he had 7 more children after coming to America. So he had 11 kids. So you would think that it would have been easy to find some of his descendants. We're going to get to that in a minute. But anyways, this is where he was about. So another one of his poems. This is called, I don't think he actually gave it a title, but what he did was he based a lot of his poetry to go to the rhythm of different songs. And this one went to the rhythm of a song called Net of the Hill. If any of you are familiar with traditional Irish singing, you may have heard this one. So he goes on with a lot of different things. You know, you'll see other examples in this. But he says, "A bright health I send to each true-hearted friend in Scotia's Greenland who still labors. Neither mirth, wit, nor song to my soul can belong since I parted from you, my old neighbors. For by night and by day my strength drained away, through hot streams from my eyes never failing, and the grief which now rings my bruised heart broke the strings of my voice through my cries and my wailing." So this is the first bit of that poem. And actually, I don't know if this translated well from the Irish as it's written. I got a feeling that it doesn't. But the guy that translated this did a pretty good job of making it rhyme and go to the rhythm of Net of the Hill. Okay, so here's another bit, and it kind of states how he feels about being in his new country. "Of this state where I dwell, I will now haste to tell such just news as I've hereto learned. 'Tis a freedom-crowned land where a man of rough hand gets respect and is paid when 'tis earned. Roast beast of the best he can stow 'neath his vest." And I love this part. "Good bacon, roast turkey, and mutton, honey, bread, cheese, and fish he can have to his wish, with fat oysters enough for a glutton." So I wrote to our friend in Ireland. I said, "All right, now this verse sounds a little bit weird, you know, especially when he's using the term glutton in here." And and you know what? Fresh oysters didn't come up this far in 1834. You know, they would have been spoiled by the time they got here. You know, because the trains weren't running yet, so there's no way that we would have oysters. So I wrote to my friend Tony in Ireland, and I said, give me a reasonable translation. And this is what he sent back, and this is what I was saying earlier to someone about how these things become translated. It takes a poet to translate a poet written in a different language, and you really have to be familiar with that language in order to do it, because sentence structure in the Irish language is completely different. The verb comes first, followed by the noun, followed by adjectives and adverbs and all that other stuff. So it's very difficult, but you can see here there's nothing about oysters or fish on here, but you know, he caught some of it, got some of it right. And this is the final verse in this poem. "Oh, my grief at the race of Clan Cork, who could chase each vile foreigner foe from their island, are now wasted and weak, and for food forced to seek the green herbs of the valley and highland. My fond love to you all who dwell neath my heart's wall, 'twill be yours, my dear friends, till I'm dying. But the punch is at hand, so here's help to our land, and the heroes who will set her flag flying." And as you can see, the only word in English here in his original writing is the word punch. So I don't know how they came about that, you know, how he came on that word. Patrick's wife died in 1840. I'm not going to read all this. I think this is available out there on the internet someplace, or if some of you would like a copy, just let me know. But you know, he was very upset with the death of his wife. They had been married. They were married in 1811, I believe. There was quite a few years difference between the two. I think there was 15 years difference in age. So this is, and it was said, it's written that he stopped writing for quite a while. So you know, he only wrote for a short time between 1834 and 1840 when his wife died. But he didn't write until 1834 because he did not want to report back to his neighbors and friends that, well, he had bought land, and he did not want to report back to his neighbors and friends that he had failed to pay for the land and was destitute again. But he had paid the land off and became a successful farmer and worked on the canal. And he moved to Ireland again, basically for the sake of his young family. But he missed Ireland dearly. Now these lines are a little bit more accurate because it's not poetry. It's just prose in a letter. Every night since I left Ireland, I go home, it seems to me. I start awake and it was only a worthless vision. I am sad and despondent. Even if I owned America, there is no place under the sun I'd rather die than in Ireland. Now, that gives you a great sense of the guy. I'm just going to go back. These poems that you see here, I think I did mention this. It was put together in a collection in 1932. And if you ever come across this book, it's probably, I don't know, 125, 130 pages. It's blue, and it's all Irish. And it was written by a guy named Richard Foley, or in his Irish name was Richard O'Fulia. Fulia, yeah. Yeah, interesting, huh?
Folly?
The Irish spelling?
No, if you were to look it up on the internet, try to find it. If you're under Richard.
Foley, Foley.
There's your punch.
Okay. So when we first met with Tony O'Flynn, a couple of years ago, he tasked us with a couple of different things to help him with his research and he's still even though he achieved his goal of getting his PhD based on this guy and has written the thesis, completed his PhD, he's still very interested in continuing his research. And he's looked for, he asked us to help with a couple of different things. To see if we could find any descendants of Pádraig Cúndún, and to see if we can find any more of his writings that either his descendants might have, or the writings from his neighbors and friends in Irish. One of the reasons that this is so important there's several people doing these studies in Ireland. One of the reasons this is so important is that it represents pre-famine era communication between Irish immigrants and their neighbors in the Irish language. That's very rare because the Irish language was going out of fashion at that time, but unfortunately it was the only language that some people understood and spoke. So he tasked us with the finding descendants and finding examples of his writings if possible. This is a small part of his family tree. Now, despite having 4 sons and 7 daughters, and the last name of Condon, you would think, all right, well, you know, we're going to find some Condons. Well, we found a lot of Condons, but none related to him, not for very long anyway. So the lines, the family lines and descendants that we have found so far have not come from his sons, but have come from his daughters.
Oh. Okay.
And wouldn't you know, if it was bad enough that we had to look for a bunch of Condons, now we have to look for a bunch of Smiths.
Oh, it's
Now, do you know how many Smiths are in the cemeteries?
It's my favorite. Wow.
But actually, this was pretty cool. We again, Jerry Reed here is a genius at this stuff. Did a lot of research. We spent a lot of time in cemeteries, locating and trying to put all the pieces together. And we finally had some leads that seemed very reliable, and we contacted some of these folks, and we actually had them here. And I know there's a lot of Murrays here today. We actually had a lot of Smiths here
Smith.
quite a while ago to help with this project.
Smith.
And we got down to
James.
this last line.
Are still living. There's somebody still living.
These are young people, much like the young lad over here, about that age, and they were up there. So they were like the 4th or 5th great grandson of Pádraig Cúndún.
Oh, it's changed.
If you want to help, and this is not just for the family here, but as anybody that what we look for are old newspaper clippings, such as obituaries, wedding announcements, birth announcements, announcements about, you know, because some of the Condons on the cousin side of things were into politics. They became well-known, very nationally well-known. Some of them were appointed by presidents as marshals in the area, federal marshals. So we're looking for newspaper clippings, things like that. Old family pictures, very helpful. We have no picture of Pádraig Cúndún. We have no idea what he looks like.
Really?
But we do have, we think we may have a picture of what his daughter Elizabeth looked like. We'll see that in a minute. Family Bibles. Pádraig Cúndún kept a what's called a Bedell Bible. And the Bedell Bible was written in the Irish language. So he could read, because he was in the habit of reading the Bible every night. But he didn't read English, so we believe he had what is called a Bedell's Bible, written in the Irish language. The interesting thing about the Bedell Bible is it was written in the Irish language, but it was written by a Protestant organization trying to convert the Catholics to the Protestant religion at the time. It was Presbyterian Methodist, I don't know what it was. But it didn't work. It didn't work on Pádraig anyways. So people keep, and I know this, that, you know, in my own family, people keep scraps of stuff in their Bibles. Boy, if you could come up with a Bedell's Bible, that would be great. We don't want it, but you know, like to see it if you had something like that. But you know, things like the scraps of obituaries and things, all kept in your Bibles and stuff. Same with scrapbooks and headstone locations. Very valuable information as far as this genealogy work goes.
Mike, can
And here are examples of the obituaries of James Smith and his wife, Elizabeth Condon Smith, and Elizabeth was Patrick's daughter. And these were given to us by his third great granddaughter, I think, Nina Cunningham. This is a picture of, we believe, it's either Patrick's daughter Elizabeth and her husband James Smith, or perhaps his granddaughter. But we've had there was no markings on the backs of the photos. Some folks are very good about putting names on the backs of photos, and some not so good. This was a case where it wasn't so good, but we believe that's Patrick's daughter. We sent this to a person knowledgeable she works in a museum and works with photographs and arts and different styles of clothing and different period styles of backgrounds and stuff. And she believes that this could be Patrick Condon's granddaughter, or daughter, I'm sorry, daughter Elizabeth, would be the older sister to Christina Condon. And this is, I think the one on the left is Lori, and the one on the right is the check is Nina Cunningham, and at Patrick Condon's headstone. And this is located in St. Agnes Cemetery, right here in town. So if you ever wanted to visit this, I can tell you exactly how to get there. And it was funny, a funny story about this stone. We wanted to find it because we had heard that he was buried there. We went to the cemetery, and it's like 29,000 graves in that thing. And just kind of looking around at dates and stuff where different folks were buried. We had took a wild shot at it, and we did find that stone, and it was down. Fortunately, it was down with the writing side up. So, we knew what we had, and we got a hold of a friend of ours, Patrick McGrath, McGrath Funeral Homes. He called the cemetery up. He arranged to have it write it up for us, and Patrick McGrath restored it to what you see here in this beautiful white marble. It was great. It was great. I should have a before and after picture here, but I kind of like this one. Just acknowledgements on this project. Our Patrick Cúndún team, Jerry Reed, who is here, you've met. Colleen Martin, Mary McGirl, Joe Kelly. I'm sure a lot of you folks know who Joe Kelly is, the writer. A fellow named Stephen Griffin. Miranda Holfelt, she is our museum expert, doing the work for us, and a host of others. Mary Ellen Schupfer, she's a sister in, she lives in Syracuse, a religious sister, I should say. She was not a direct descendant of Patrick, but we believe she descended from his cousin's family that were already here. And then Dr. Tony O'Flynn, Irish language professor at Mary Immaculate College at the University of Limerick. Well, we're going to go visit, we hope, at the end of September, and get some more information about Patrick Cúndún and his writings and his descendants. And of course, I have the descendants that have helped us out from from the Smith family. I'd like to add the Murray names to that list too.
Glad to be there.
But I believe that's it.
Final